Hello, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Chris Landry on football as we break down draft trade charts. You hear a lot about it when trades are being made. Teams refer to a trade chart, and I'm going to explain a little bit about how it was originated and what it really means and how we use it in the NFL and some fallacies about it as well. So we're going to make had a chart here to give you an idea. It's not a complete list, obviously, as the chart it depicts every pick in the draft and puts a number associated with it. And here's how it really works: is if you look at it, what we did when I started our trade charts in Cleveland and in Houston and Tennessee, the way I did it is I took every trade, really at that time, every trade in the free agent era, and we took a value of what pick for pick what teams got and look and put a numerical value on it. Jimmy Johnson had somebody in the organization like McCoy of the Cowboys do a similar thing and did an analytic study. Well, what I did and is a similar thing, and everybody in the league does it. Every team has their own. And if you look at it, it puts a point value for the first pick, 3,000, and he goes all the way down to the last, the pick, let's say, 200th pick in the seventh round, worth 3 points. So, and it goes down as you see a little bit of incremental value, and I put some of the point value. So simply put, if you're going to move down from one spot to 5, you subtract the numbers and see where the numbers are later in the draft to kind of compute picks. Here's where the fallacy comes into play. These are fine. They're pure numbers that you plug in a generic draft. It does not factor in, of course, the most important thing, the players that you can get with those picks. So what I do and what every team does every year is adjust their draft trade chart based upon the grades that they have, and this is my grade formula here for the players in the draft. For example, if you've got one player with a 7.0 grade, let's say you got a 7.0 grade, you got one player. Well, this value is going to be worth a little different than, say, in the next year if you've got 3 players with 7.0 grades. In essence, you'd be taking the first three picks would have closer numerical value, if not the same value. So you cannot look simply say the points for the 40th pick is worth 500 points, because if you start looking at the overall number of players you got, you may have more players with, say, a 6.5 or a 6.4 grade that'll make this point here, this pick, a lot higher in one year or a lot lower in another year. And the same thing applies. If it's a draft that you feel there's a drop off at a certain point, at the 5th point, then obviously the 10th point value might go down a little bit one year and up a little bit. So in essence, the picks itself may be worth a certain amount of points, but the players you can get with those picks are going to differentiate depending upon the team, obviously, as they see players differently and grade them differently. And it's going to be different from year to year because you're going to have more players with certain grades one year than the next. The average amount of first-round grades on a given year by NFL teams is 18. This year I've got 19 players. I know that some teams have as many as 22. It varies, but the average number is 18. So you can start doing the numbers where the cutoffs. Okay, you got first-round grades, but how many of them are 7.0 grades? How many of them are 6.9? How many of them are 6.5? 7.0s obviously is elite, top of the draft. 6.5s are in the mid to the first mid of the first round and up, and then 6.5 grades would represent mid to lower part. But again, that drop off sometimes comes down at about 18, 19, 20 in that area. So that's going to determine the point value. So you take the point value, and what I always do is I do a formula based upon how many players at each grade spot. That'll determine the value. So when people say things like, well, a team paid too much, well, they may have paid too much in terms of point value on a generic chart, but it does not have the total, doesn't tell the whole total story, because obviously if a team really wants to go up and get a player, they're going to go get them. I mean, they're not in 1 year. They may not be willing to move up and go get a player because they don't think as highly of a player. But if they've got a player that can be a transcendent player, particularly a quarterback that can be a difference maker, a franchise quarterback, they're going to go up and get them, even if it's a little more than the draft chart might say. On the other side is, let's say you've got the 5th pick in the draft and you've got 1,700 points, and you want to move down to the 10th spot. Okay, that's a 400-point value. Okay, that's going to get you somewhere with the 50th pick. Okay, 400 points. The 50th pick is worth 400. Okay, that's in the second round. So to go from 5 to 10, in theory, you could get a second round pick for doing it. However, let's say you're at the 5th spot and you've got a guy that you absolutely want at 5, and you're not going to get the same caliber player at 10 in your mind on your draft board, then it doesn't make sense to move even to get a second round pick if you're going to miss out on an elite player in your mind. However, let's say you've got a number of players, 4 to 5 players on your board that you like equally well. You're not sold on any one over the other, but you like all 5. You could be really happy with either 5. Well, to go from 5 to 10, you'd ask for a second. You'd like to get a second. Maybe you start out asking for a 2 and maybe something next year. Folks, in order to do a trade, and every fan does this, well, I want this, I want to move up and I want, a boatload. They always slant the trade in favor of the team that they pull for. You can't do deals like that in the league. In order to do trades, and I've done several in the league, it's got to make sense for both teams. To go from 5 to 10, if I'm going to get the same player, and somebody says, I'm not giving you a 2, I'll give you a 3, well, you can do one of two things. You can hang up the phone, take your same guy at 5 you would take at 10, or take the 3. It's foolish. To heck with somebody saying, well, you didn't get value, or the value was second round. You got a 3rd round pick to move down 5 spots and get the same guy. If you have a chance to do the deal, do the deal. Ask for more, but be willing to negotiate and settle. Really important to understand. But the whole issue is, how bad do you want to move down? How bad do you want to move up? That'll dictate and change the values, and obviously will change the point values from year to year. But remember, your grades and how these players figure in these spots are the real key. So that gives you a little bit of an idea. I'll tell you a quick story. Back in 1995, we had a number of players that we liked in the draft, but we really liked Eddie George out of Ohio State. But we had a few options there. We were at the 9th pick, and we had a chance to move down to 14. We had to actually move down to 16 and then move up to 14 from there. But we had a number of players that we liked, and the Raiders wanted to move up to our 9th spot. And that they were interested in Ricky Dudley, the tight end from Ohio State, ironically the teammate of Eddie George. Well, we wanted to ask, we wanted a 2nd round pick. We went towards a 3rd round pick. They still wouldn't do it. Again, instead of being stubborn, we got a 4th round pick for doing it. We moved down to 16, actually. Then what we did, we traded a backup nose tackle that we were going to cut with Seattle and move up to 14. The moral of the story is we got the same player. Now, we were prepared to lose Eddie George if he were gone. We had another option. But Eddie was there. We got Eddie George, the same guy we'd have taken at 9, we took now at 14. And with the 4th round pick, we used it on John Runyon, who became a Pro Bowl tackle for us in the Super Bowl run. So the point is you have to be smart. Everyone wants, to get their car with 200,000 miles on it. They want to get more than it's worth. That's normal, okay? But you can't do a deal in this league if you don't know how to understand what the value is. It has to make sense for them. So this is why you have a lot of preliminary discussions with teams who might be interested in moving up, who might be interested in moving back. They have an idea at this time of year who might be there and who won't be there. Not the exact player, but the cluster of players who they like, where they think the value is in the draft. So you can begin preliminary conversations. So that on draft day, you've already done the preliminary work. Then you can go, hey, that deal we kind of talked about, how do you feel about it? This is what we're thinking, what you're thinking, get back with us. And you can do a deal in 5 or 6 minutes, and it's simply done. But the important thing to understand, the point values that you read on the charts on the internet, and there are a million of them, they're not as accurate as they think. They differ from year to year. So if you find one that's old, it's irrelevant. It's going to be somewhat in the ballpark. This gives you an idea, and that's fine. But remember, take the point values and do a formula based upon the players' grades and how many of those players. That'll determine the point value throughout the draft. Hope that gives you a better idea and maybe gives you a better understanding about draft trades as we head into the draft a week away. Remember, we've got a discount for LandryFootball.com. You can get information like this, as well as complete draft breakdowns, scouting reports, you name it, team needs analysis, draft charts. We've got it all for you. If you want insights into the game of football from a veteran NFL coach and scout, that's what we do for you, the college and pro game. Cover it all, from recruiting to the draft. Check us out, 50% discount using the coupon code CHRIS, C-H-R-I-S. So check us out, and we'll see you soon on LandryFootball.com and on another edition of Chris Landry on Football.